In this video, I'm going to talk again about coloring or texturing your actual asset. The important thing to know is that your mesh is going to be coming in, again, with good UV layout, and you don't necessarily have to assign your material in your 3D application. You're going to be working inside of Mudbox to create all the textures that you're going to need. Now, we are working with a traditional setup here where we have diffuse maps, specular maps, ambient occlusion or AO maps. You'll be creating your normal maps, and we do have some other maps that we can work with as well. The important thing to know is that there is a default material in Mudbox, which is nice to adjust as you are working. So if you are working inside of here with your mesh, you might want to, or if you're working with a default mesh, you can come in here and change your actual color of that clay so that you can work with it a bit easier. You also can turn off specularity or adjust your gloss, any kind of incandescence. And if you want to work just inside of Mudbox and do rendering, this is a good place to also refer to. So what I'm going to do is drag in our base mesh that I created before. And I'm just going to increase my subdivisions on this just a little bit. Now, inside of my object list, you will see a new texture added. So default materials here, along with Lambert 2, which is coming in with my mesh. Inside Lambert 2, I can go ahead and name it. And then I can also go in here and change the colors. So because I'm working with an imported mesh, I'm going to get the, or have the ability to edit these settings within the rock. In this case, my Lambert, well, was my Lambert 2, but now my rock texture, and then my default material won't really do anything for me. So if I come in here and I try to change this, you're not going to see any adjustments. But if I go to rock, I can definitely make those adjustments. So work with a base texture or color that works for you too. So don't just do this for sculpting. Consider this as well when you're working with your base textures. So if you know that your underlying texture is going to be green, you might want to come in here and work with that green. So let's just take a look at these and see again what we're coming up with as far as options. So specular is, in this case, default set to this grayish blue. If I click on it and of course work with my settings here in my color picker, notice what happens in my actual surface. So what I'm doing here is I can add color to my specular. And again, this really is something that you might want to have affecting your renders. But we're going to be exporting these maps. So the important thing to work with is a specular map that's black and white. So what I'm going to do is go over here, drag my my option over here to the left side, and I'm going to choose, in this case, just like a medium specularity. You're welcome to go as high as you want. And again, we're going to paint our maps. So that's going to give us some control. The gloss here is a little different. So specularity is basically going to specify the color of your specular highlight. And again, this is going to be affecting when you're working inside, painting your mesh inside a Mudbox, and if you're doing rendering in here. The gloss is actually going to change the size of your specular reflection. So the lower the value, the smaller the specular highlight. And if you go ahead and adjust this, I'm just going to kind of move it up the side here. You'll notice that it's either getting very, very muted, or in this case, much sharper. Okay. Oops, let me go to the right settings here. That would help, right? So here we've got a very strong if I go all the way to black, unfortunately, I'm going to get this. Some people do use this when they want like a stylized effect, but again, I would avoid, I would avoid going to 100% black. The, when working with color, you're not going to see much difference. So one thing to make note of too, if you see color in here, you're probably still on specular like I was. You want to make sure that you have gloss selected. And again, you got that finite highlight that you would see maybe on a cue ball. And then we can go up here and start softening this a little bit. So that's just something that to adjust as you're working. Opacity is nice. Opacity will allow you to work with, again, I would work with white and black and shades of gray for all of this. So you are actually creating a opacity on the surface. This can also be painted later, but if you have objects or parts of your object that are transparent, it's good to note this. 100% black is going to be fully transparent, and then white, of course, will be opaque. Your incandescence is going to work the same way. When you think of incandescence, you might want to consider perhaps a candle, for instance. In this case, we're not going to work with this for this class, but you can, of course, adjust it here, and you can add a color to it if you want. But I'm going to keep that on. In this case, I'll show you that 100% solid. This is nice when you want to do a silhouette. So if you were trying to create a silhouette to show off, maybe you're sculpting a character and you just want to get those silhouettes to see how it's coming along, this is not a bad option to do. So consider doing that just to test your silhouettes. As far as the rest of these, you can choose some maps in here. You can add some maps for reflection masks. You can work with your bump maps, which we're going to be doing as well with export, but we are going to be relying on our normal maps. And all the rest of these, for the most part, I would just leave alone. You can adjust them later, but let's leave everything else the way that it came in as default on your installation. But I just wanted to kind of cover this with you again. I know I touched on it briefly before, but it's important to just understand what's going into this before you start actually texturing.